And Pakistan in Facebook company and Instagram. And a communication symposium without social media is not complete. So I had to have someone that can talk Facebook. So we were searching to find the right person to do that talk, and we knew that there is a regional office that opened recently in Dubai. But as you know, Facebook don't give their contacts in their website. They're very closed in their website only. So how to get to the people that are behind that website? So we were searching, and we came up with an email. And I sent an email to Jonathan, no answer. A week later, I received an answer from his assistant telling me, yes, what it is about. So we gave him all the contacts and we gave him all the details. And he said, yes, I'm interested, but as you know, on the 6th, it's the 5th anniversary of Instagram. And we're having a big party in Burj Al Arab, Dubai. We told him that it's fine, there is 4 planes a day to Beirut. And then I took a plane, I went to his office, and we sat together, and I think I convinced him. He's here now, and I'm happy that Jonathan is here to talk about Facebook and Instagram. Yes, before I give him the floor, I have just an intro that there has been a lot of questions about Facebook lately. And some are like, are people still using it? Or is it on the decline? Or is it good for our business? But every time I go and I see the number of Facebook users, I see the curve growing. Today it's 1.4 billion, and that in itself is an answer. Jonathan, the floor is for you.
Thanks a lot, Sammy. It's great to be here. I love Beirut, and it's good to have such a good excuse to be here again. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed the discussion earlier, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion after this as well. So I thought a little bit last evening what to talk about, and it's pretty interesting times right now. There's a lot happening. We heard a lot about big shifts happening, and we see them as well. But I can't talk all day, so I decided to focus on 3 big themes, 3 big shifts that we are seeing. These are shifts that keep me up at night, and I thought they might also be interesting for you. The first one is about mobile feeds as the new center of discovery. The second one is all about the explosion of mobile sight, sound, and motion, and also what that means from a creative point of view. And the third is about the opportunity of personalization. So I'll talk about all of these in a little bit. We now spend more than 3 hours a day on mobile phones, and sometimes I think it's very interesting and funny to see how in the rest of the world, in the US and the Western world, they talk about this shift to mobile and the fact that mobile is going to overtake TV. And I was thinking, in the Middle East, we have been there for quite some time. I think for us, any of you, in this room, probably particularly at the back end of the room, you'd say mobile is already our first screen today, right? I don't have figures for Lebanon, but Saudi is a good example. The mobile screen is already our screen of choice today, right? And I think that's it's not coming, it's not a trend, it's here today. And when we talk about mobile, I think it's important also to go a little deeper and try to break mobile down, because often we stop there. We say mobile. When we think about people spending time on mobile, where are they actually spending time on mobile? So I'll try to break mobile down a little bit. And I think the first trend that's really important is to think about where people spend time on their mobile phones. And when I look at where people build, they still build a lot for the mobile web, but the mobile web is not where people spend time. So people spend time in apps today, right? The mobile web is actually declining, whereas time spent in mobile apps is increasing. Now, the app world is not an easy one. There is about 3 million apps out there right now. There's a lot of apps out there. And the truth is also, I think if I ask any of you in this room, how many apps do you use? You don't use that many, right? These are US figures, but I don't think the Middle East and Lebanon is that different. We typically spend 75% of the time in 4 to 5 mobile apps, right? US figures, but I don't think it's going to be very different if you think about your personal experience. And then I try to break that down a little bit again in terms of what kind of themes can you look at when it comes to apps. And this is just an example. It's tough to find mobile time spent globally. This is just a snapshot from App Annie. It's a great resource to figure out what app downloads look like. And independently of the companies that you see up there, for me there's, when I think about mobile and where people spend their time, I see two themes. One is messaging. I believe mobile messaging is the new standard of communication. Maybe let me ask this room, who still sends emails to any of their friends? Emails to friends? Still? But not many. I don't see a lot of hands going up. Still emails to friends. I don't send emails to friends. I think most of us don't send emails to friends anymore. You message friends, right? Who likes to receive emails from businesses in this room? Yeah. Still quite a bit more. I don't. I try to block them most. Some go through. But in some cases I'm really glad. But generally most emails from businesses go into my junk folder today, right? I believe messaging is also going to become the new standard of communication from businesses to consumers. It's just going to take a few years, but that's going to be the new standard as well. But the most interesting one, in my opinion, is feeds. If we think what we really spend all the time on mobile, it's feeds, right? It's feeds. And this is an example. The last one is an example, I think, of my feed during Ramadan last year. No matter if it's discovery of things and news from friends, if it's discovery of new products, if it's news, we discover things today through our thumbs, right? Through our fingers. That's how we discover things, and that's the new discovery engine of today. And this discovery engine today, and this is true, right? Facebook and Instagram are just two examples. Snapchat is a feed. Twitter is a feed. These are all feeds, so we live in a feed-based world today. And I think that's really important as well if we think about like planned media and how you then create creative for those feeds as well. And these feeds are not small feeds anymore. I think that's the other big thing. So we live in a world where feeds are mass discovery engines. For me, feeds are where people today in masses are discovering their content, right? Facebook now has close to 1.5 billion monthly users and 1 billion a day, right? And this is a day. Instagram is now at 400 million. In the MENA region, Facebook is at more than 100 million a month, more than 60 million a day, right? There is no other media, there's no single media channel or no single paper, newspaper, TV channel that has a 60 million reach, as far as I know. Might be wrong. But from a single platform point of view, we are now in a mass reach point of view as well. And I think that's important when you think about how you plan your media as well. We do a lot of studies to try to measure how Facebook and TV coexist. They coexist very well. I think they're actually very complementary platforms. So on average, we've seen these 40 studies that we have done, is that Facebook provides 19% incremental reach. So international studies, we're seeing similar results here early on. So I think that's also very important. It's a discovery platform, but it's a mass discovery platform, which really works well from a planning point of view with other media as well. The other big trend is, for me, the explosion of mobile sight, sound, and motion. Do any of you guys notice something about your phones? If you look at your phones, I see some of you guys looking at your phones. Have a closer look. Do you notice something about your phones? Something different over the last couple of years. There's one big thing that's changed on our phones. Obviously, cameras and lots of fancy things. But one other big thing is they become much more than they used to be 20 years ago in terms of size, right? In the 80s, we had these big bricks. Then in the 90s and 2000s, phones became pretty small. Now phones are getting bigger and bigger again. And what that means is that it allows a much better visual canvas for communication, right? And that also means that totally new ways of communication come up, new forms of communication. I'm personally a big fan of stickers. I don't know, I love stickers. They're exploding. There's now more than 350 million stickers that are sent each single day on Facebook. This little gentleman there at the bottom, that's a minion from Despicable Me, which is a great movie, Despicable Me 2 that came out. The minion stickers have been sent billions of times. A few months ago, it was more than 2 billion times to consumers. If you think about that for a second, right? 2 billion times that a branded piece of content, basically, this is part of the brand, Despicable Me, has been sent out. It's a whole totally new way of communication that we're seeing as well. And I think this is a general trend that we are seeing on mobile now. If you think about Facebook, 5-10 years ago, it was all about written communication. Then it was all about photos, and now it's more and more about videos and sight, sound, and motion. Right? That's a big trend that we are seeing across. Mobile video is exploding globally right now. More than 360%. Whenever you see these figures, you don't quite know what to think about it, but it's clear that it's exploding globally. It's also exploding on Facebook. Recently, we had less than 1 billion views a day. Today, we have more than 4 billion views on Facebook a day. And as usual, in the Middle East, we kind of tend to lead the way when it comes to mobile consumption. In the Middle East, the Facebook video consumption per user is actually 2x the global average, just to give you a sense how much it's also exploding in this part of the world. And this explosion on mobile means also that the way that we communicate on mobile is changing a little bit, right? It's much more about feeds, and the content that we create also needs to be for mobile feeds. It needs to be sight, sound, and motion for mobile feeds. And I think that's a really interesting area that a lot of companies are now exploring. I'll give you a couple of examples. This is an example from Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, 40 million views. What I thought was interesting about it was that it's actually, a typical spot, but they decided to make it 15 seconds instead of 30. Because on mobile feeds, you have to really think about how you develop content that lives in a mobile feed world. I think another good example is Etihad. And they also thought about mobile feeds. So what can we do differently here? And they did something that we call a cinematograph. So if you go through your mobile feed, all they did was this, right? Very subtle, very beautiful. All you see this, and you stop in your feed. It's thumb stopping, right? You stop there, you have a look at it. Very beautiful. Another good example is Jameson, right? They just thought, okay, let's just think feed first. How can we do something fun? Let's feed first. And that's how they think about sight, sound, and motion in a mobile feed. These are just, I think, a couple of good examples that give you a sense of how we can leverage mobile in a very interesting way. Now, the last point in terms of big shifts is personalization. If we think about marketing like 100 years ago, I actually think marketing is kind of going back to the future a little bit, just better. Marketing 100 years ago was very personal, right? 100 years ago, 150 years ago, was all about going to shop. You probably knew the shop owner knew you. It was a personal relationship. The shop owner might even have known what you were interested in. So it was a very personal relationship. And marketing was personal by definition 150 years ago. What then happened is industrialization happened, businesses expanded, business became big, and mass communication started, the way that we've seen it over the last 50, 100 years. And it worked really well. It's a great form of communication. It's very scalable. But what got lost a little bit was the personal touch in communication, I believe, for the last 50 years. And I think today we actually are in a very unique time because we are lucky enough that through technology, if you think about the targeting that you have on platforms like Facebook, right? It's all identity-based. It's about real people. So the targeting you can do allows you to use a technology and to basically personalize at scale. So you have the power of personalization from 100 years ago, and you have the scale that I just demonstrated earlier. I'll just give you one example, again from this region, a very simple one. This is an Etihad commercial again. It's an ad. If you look at the ad, I think it's a good piece of creative, but it's nothing special. Right? Probably for most of you guys, it's nothing special. But you didn't see this ad, probably. The reason is that they decided to use something that we have on our platform called expat targeting, which is one of the targeting mechanisms, right? And it allows you to target expats in the UAE, in Saudi, wherever they are. they decided to target Indian expats living in the UAE. They targeted 1 million Indian expats in the UAE and reached about 600,000 of them. And they did it right before Diwali, which is a time of family celebration. So they told them, just the Indian expats, just the 1 million Indian expats, they told them, look, why don't you bring your family over to celebrate Diwali together? Suddenly this message becomes very relevant and very meaningful for you, right? Just because it feels personal and because it feels relevant to you. And I think that's the power of personalization. So why does all of this matter that I just talked about? I'll give you an example. So I grew up in Germany. All the Germans, they love Knight Rider. I love David Hasselhoff as well. I was a big fan. And when I was younger and I grew up, I had to watch Knight Rider. That was my one show that I always had to watch. I remember the debates I had with my parents. I had to watch Knight Rider, right? And I would drop everything to watch that show. Today, things have changed a little bit. All of us in this room today, we all have these superpowers, and some of you in the audience already talked about this. But we all have superpowers today. That means that every piece of content ever created is at our fingertips, right? It's not what's in the news today on one channel or the other. Everything ever created is now at your fingertips, and you can access it, right? That's a superpower. And that means that everything ever created competes with everything. And that makes actually marketing much more difficult than it was a while ago, because cutting through that clutter is tougher than ever before. And it actually means that we believe today, in a feed-based world, you have 3 seconds, basically. 3 seconds to get someone's attention. If you didn't get someone's attention in 3 seconds, you have lost them, right? And this is true for traditional media, so it's actually been true for, all the time. This is probably a generic law. But I think through mobile and today's world where everything is accessible all the time, it's become much more important. If you don't get someone's attention in the first 3 seconds, that person I see in this room, I got most of you, but not all, some of you guys on your phone, because I didn't get you the last 3 seconds, right? You're on your phone if you don't capture someone's attention in 3 seconds. So I think all in all, that means that actually it might seem like it's getting more difficult, but I think there's also a huge opportunity ahead. I think if you combine what I said earlier, right, we are in a very unique time where you can combine technology with mass media to create something personalized. If you do that at the center of discovery, the new center of discovery, which is mobile feeds, and you do it with sight, sound, and motion, then you can create something really, really amazing. So to summarize, my advice would be to reach people at their new center of discovery, which are mobile feeds, to really think about that. To think about the explosion of mobile video, what that means from a creative canvas point of view, and how you can leverage that, and the unique opportunity of personalized marketing at scale. And if you take all that into account, it's actually super exciting times for us ahead. Thank you.
Any questions for Jonathan? No?
No questions? No questions?
I don't know. There are articles that go around about Facebook using YouTube videos. So the content creators that happen on YouTube. So there is these articles that go around about creation of videos on Facebook that doesn't happen as often as sharing a video from YouTube, and how it's affecting YouTubers. So in other words, there's the plagiarism that happens on Facebook that affects all of us. So for instance, say I share a picture that I didn't take, that someone else, say Tina, took. So this is somehow plagiarism, right? So how do you deal with those issues when it comes to posts and videos and all those stuff? And how do you reward the YouTubers that do the videos posted on YouTube, on Facebook, and that don't generate revenue for them?
So we take content very, very seriously, and obviously also ownership of content. If you think about the graph that I showed earlier, right, which showed you the explosion of content on Facebook, right? It's something that happened very quickly over the last couple of months, and we are working on lots of things to protect that content for consumers. Give us a little time. We are on it. And if you think 10 years back or so, it wasn't so different. When someone suddenly has a lot of content, they need a system in place to make sure that whoever created that content is protected, and we have that in place. So we're working on that. We already have something in place. We're trying to improve that even further. You can already today always make sure that if there's a piece of content, you can always click on it and say, hey, there's something wrong going on with it. But we're also working on systems to make sure that it's all generally protected.
I have a question. You started by saying that, first of all, people they started writing, then posting pictures, and now it's videos. But doesn't it affect Facebook, the fact that people are stopping to post written things on the timeline? Yeah, you understood what I wanted to say. First of all, people started posting on their timeline by writing things. Then it was only by pictures, now it's videos. So basically, Facebook can't track what people love. They can't extract information.
I think for us, at the end of the day, we want to do, however people want to communicate. We want to enable different ways of communication. People want to do, and it's a shift happening all the time. Pictures are still huge on Facebook, right? I think at the end of the day, it's what you enjoy most as a consumer as well. If we think about your feed, you probably yourself, maybe depends on every person, right? But you probably yourself engage more with photos or with videos. So we just believe we do whatever is right for people, however people want to consume. That's what we try to enable. Then you have technology as well, right? The fact that a mobile phone now is the best possible camera in the world, that a mobile phone now is an amazing video camera as well, just allows for this explosion to happen.
To say is that people stopped writing things on their timeline, so it became more so they started just posting pictures and posting videos. So you can't track whether I'm sorry if it's a personal question you don't have to answer. I didn't mean it to come up this way. But when they used to write things, so Facebook could track information on each person and know what were their likes and their dislikes. But now when people start posting pictures and videos, Facebook can't anymore track what's... So that's...
we still know what your interests are. We see how you engage on the platform. So we still try to make sure that we show you content that you enjoy. And this is actually also true for advertising. I think it's actually an interesting point. On Facebook, you can actually, every ad that you see, you can give feedback. You can click on the ad and say, I don't want to see this again because I don't like the ad. Or you can say, I don't want to see anything from this advertiser again. So you can give feedback, and that is directly being taken into account. You can even look into Facebook and see what we believe your interests are. So you can look at your own profile and see, this is what we believe your interests are. You can change it accordingly then. So we still try to get signals from you in terms of how you behave on the platform, what you like, what you don't like, to make sure to try to make sure that we show you content that's relevant, and this includes advertising.
So Facebook will be rolling out the dislike button and the video profile picture, right? Anything else you can share with us?
There's no dislike button.
It's not coming.
No, I think it's interesting because if you listen to the Q&A that Mark gave, he said explicitly, we're not going to do a dislike button. And it got picked up as we're doing a dislike button. No, there's not being a dislike button. What we're testing is just taking emotions in general more into account. What are other ways to express your emotions on the platform? That's something we're testing rather than a dislike button.
Thank you for the nice presentation. I have a question now regarding how Facebook shares our feeds. Sometimes we post something, we've got 10,000 people reached. Another time, next day it's 500 people reached. How does it work?
I think it's a very good question. I think generally speaking, if you think about what's happening on platforms like Facebook, but also around the world, is the following. We as people consume content. And if you think about Facebook, for example, consumption increases, more people spend more time on Facebook every day. So you have a linear increase of media consumption happening on Facebook. And then on the other side, on the flip side, you have content that's being created. If you look at the amount of content that's being created, it is growing exponentially, right? Every year there's about 2 times the amount of content we can show you that we could show you yesterday, right? This is true for Facebook. It is true for every other so-called social media platform out there. And it's actually true for media in general, because everything competes with everything. So what's happening is that it's tougher for a content creator to cut through. And therefore, it really depends on how good the content is. Generally speaking, it's getting more difficult for each single piece to be consumed, while overall consumption is still increasing because there's so much more content out there every single year. So I think these are the fundamentals behind it, right? Content creation is doing this, content consumption is doing this, therefore each single post you see less, but overall it's still increasing. I think these are the dynamics behind it, and then depending on each post, depends on signals that we get from the system. How relevant is that post for you? How good is the content? How have other people reacted to it?
Does Facebook permits us to post many times on the feed the same day?
You can post many times, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get more distribution.
This is our personal experience. The first album shared, let's say in the morning, it gets, let's say, 10,000 reached. When we post another album a couple hours ago, it goes down 10 times.
I guess the assumption there is that there's more interest in the first one, or one piece of communication as well. You also think about the consumers, right? If you post a lot, how much content do they want to receive from one source? If it's great content, then they may want to receive it over and over again. But personally, after a few messages from one entity, maybe I don't want to see that much anymore. It's just an assumption. But I think it goes back to that, right? How relevant do we feel that piece of content is for that person?
Thank you.
Hello. So thank you for your presentation. And as it was so good in the time, in the photos and so on, I have a question, as I am a trainer in capacity building and also sustainable development. My question is about time. Did you receive some training? Because your presentation was so close, like a video. So did you receive any training to have this kind of presentation very, very organized like this? And the second question, is there anything in communication, like now in slow food, after quick food, is there anything coming like slow communication? Tendence?
For the second one, I got to think. For the first question, I give you an easy answer. That I have the advantage that now flights to Beirut, rather than taking 2.5 hours, take 4 hours. So that me gave the opportunity to really finish the presentation last night on the plane. I think that's the answer for that one. In terms of slow communication, I think there is room. I think it really depends on how you personally experience it as well. I think something that we are testing in other markets is experiences where when you're in your feed, you go through the feed, and you actually want to go deeper with something. So you click on it, and then you go deeper. I think this is something interesting which we're testing, which we're looking into with articles, with other types of content, is to say, you know what, sometimes you go into your feed, you actually want to lean back again. So this is something that we're testing now from an article point of view, media point of view, in other ways as well. This could potentially also be, a marketing tool as well. Something that we are looking at and testing, but I think generally there's a mix of both. We live in a world that is pretty fast. Everything happens in the finger, but I think there's also a time when sometimes you find something that really interests you and you want to go deeper.
We still have 3 minutes, so we'll take the opportunity for 2 questions only. There is a question here.
There's a question here. He already has the mic.
Okay.
There's the girl who has the mic and the guy who has the mic. So let the girl start.
Please go ahead. Who has the microphone? Yes.
Well, I have a couple
I
of questions.
got
If you could answer them, please. First question, when it came to Facebook, at first it was a low-budget solution for small businesses with small budgets, but now you have to pay for sponsored posts and boosted posts, and visibility is getting lower, so you have to boost your posts more, and you have to work on production, since now you can boost videos and you can promote videos. So it's becoming more costly for small businesses with low budgets. How could it stay relevant without being that costly for small businesses? The second question is about ad blocking. How are you planning to deal with it, as it's on the rise now on mobile and with iOS 9 coming out and all of this? The third question is about the system.
Two questions. It's fine. Let them answer.
Okay, thank you.
Let me take the second one maybe first, because it's faster. Ad blocking. So I think kind of two parts of the answer. One is ad blocking doesn't apply on Facebook. It's a feed-based world, right? So in feeds, the ad blocking does not apply. But I think independently of that, it goes back to what I discussed, what we said earlier. Advertising now needs to be interesting, it needs to be relevant. It's our responsibility as an industry to create something that people actually want to engage with, so that you don't block it. I think when it comes to the first question, I think partly I tried to answer before. What happens with with your reach of your posts? What's happening? There is more content out there, right? Overall, consumption still increases, so we actually see lots of small businesses that are having great success on Facebook, right? And it doesn't always need to be. You can also be humble as a business. It doesn't always need to be a big production of something. It can be something very natural that fits your business. It can be a photo. I've seen great examples of startups that just shoot a growth photo, that you can do a video with your camera, right, today. It doesn't always need to be a big production, but I think it needs to be authentic, it needs to be relevant for your target audience, and then they're going to enjoy seeing it as well. Next.
My question is kind of a little bit close to this, but it's more linked to the usability of Facebook. It started off as a network to connect people so that everybody could stay in touch, kind of like LinkedIn. And then features started to come in, so then we have pictures and videos, like you said. And so I'm just wondering if the reason people are using Facebook today, is it still the same? Okay, let me rephrase that. We don't use Facebook anymore just so that we can connect with people. It's mostly we see adverts and sponsorships and all of these things. Is Facebook's goal to do that, or is it just trying to adapt to what the users want today?
I think generally speaking, we are a platform that adapts a lot, right? If you think about what I discussed earlier, feeds, right? We live in this feed-based world. Like when was it? Like 2008 or so. I don't know exactly when we introduced it. But we try to be a company that always innovates and always changes, right? Back then, there was one group on Facebook, and that was the group that had the most followers and the most likes. And that was the group I hated in Facebook, right? Because we had introduced newsfeed, right? And initially, people didn't enjoy the experience. We felt it was right, and today it is what people enjoy most, right? It is what everyone does on Facebook. They go through their feed. So we always try to innovate, and we see what is it people most enjoy. If I think about my own experience, it is still very much about friends and family. That is still at the core for me, but it has also become my center of discovery for news. I think everyone has a little bit of their own use case. For some people, it's more about friends. For other people, it's more about news. I think it depends a little, but at the core, it's still about making the world more open and connected. I think what we did see is that for some use cases, it might even make sense to split out the experience, like a Messenger, for example. And therefore, you have a separate Messenger app now to make sure that you can have instant communication with people want it.
When you innovate, you have people or brands in mind?
We always have both in mind. I mean, consumers always come first, but we also always try to come up with solutions that work for brands. The person that actually is now responsible for advertising on Facebook and coming up with new solutions is the person that came up with newsfeed. So he came from a consumer point of view, is now in charge of creating new advertising products on Facebook. because he actually believes, the consumer does come first, and what we create needs to be for consumers.
We can take still two, because there are plenty. We don't want to leave all these people without the possibility to ask. So go ahead, you have the microphone.
I've read too many articles over the net saying that Facebook only allows a 2% reach for the posts over the up to 5% reach for each page over each Facebook page. Is that true? What is the reason of that, and how Facebook calculates or target these people? They say that in order to roll out more the Facebook ads, or to push people to pay for ads. A second question about Instagram ads. It's not being rolled out for all companies. Still, when you go to to place an ad over Instagram, you read that it's being rolled out, and how much it's going to take.
Sure. First question. It goes back to what I said earlier. The logic is always this one of time spent is doing this, content creation is doing this, right? So that's the basic law of the average distribution of the posts, right? It's time spent, amount of posts you create, and amount of potential posts we can show you, right? As long as the amount of potential posts increases more than the time you spend on the platform, the percentage distribution is going to go down. This is not a Facebook thing. The same is true on any other platform. Think about Twitter. Exactly the same applies, but they use time as the filter mechanism, right? So it's just a general thing that applies in today's world, where there's more content out there, and you don't have a chance to be able to consume everything that's coming at you. So that's the reason why there's no specific percentages. It all boils down to how much is being created, how much do you consume, and how relevant is that piece of content for you. There's companies that get amazing distribution because it's just very good content that everyone wants to see.
The lucky one to have the last question is? There is another lady.
Since Facebook is used to do some advertising, and the advertisers are paying for it, I have a question about the people coming to you and asking you to pay like a sum of money to get 100 or 1,000 of likes, like you're buying potatoes or I don't know. How do you deal with this problem, because it plays a lot with the credibility of Facebook. So people are like buying likes on Facebook, while other people are paying for their ads.
I mean, we always try to shut any of these businesses down, but I think the more important thing is that if you think about how we actually think about marketing today, and our solutions have evolved dramatically over the last 3 years. Today, if we work with brands, what we would measure is incremental reach, brand impact, favorability, brand love. These are the metrics that we love. These are the same metrics that you would measure on traditional media. These are the metrics that we use for big brand advertisers. If you are a performance advertiser, if you want to drive app downloads, or if you want to sell online, then we measure cost per sale, cost per install. So these are the things that we measure now, and this is also what we have now realized is best for business. We want to drive business impact. So we actually see the big shifts away from likes to now we can actually measure the real impact. The like was an intermediary, a very interesting and very important intermediary KPI. Today, we go right to the end result, and we measure brand impact, and we measure sales.
Jonathan, are you staying till the next coffee break? Okay, so you can interact with him on the coffee break. Now we're starting the next session immediately. I invite the next panel of people to go.